Welcome, everybody. My name is Cindy Teevens. I'm author of Alchemy, How to Feel Good No Matter What, and The Happiness Lie, What Generations Have Been Told That Makes You Unhappy. This series of broadcasts, we're going to cover real live answers to burning questions that people have. We're going to show you a 2-minute technique to inner peace. We're going to look together at the difference between you, thought, and feeling, in case you've never done that. And I don't know about you, but I lived most of my life never doing that, never knowing anything about that, which was quite shocking to discover later on when I turned 40-something. I'm going to show you how to break free from painful attachments and how to question who you are to know and separate out thought from truth. So the spiritual version of Dear Abby is Dear Self. You might be seeking answers to why you feel, act, and react the way you do, or maybe even questioning who you are, who you actually are. What most people out there think of as who they are is usually their role, or their passion, or their purpose, not actually who they are. Or perhaps you've noticed that no matter how hard you try, you can't stop thoughts, and you're not impressed with many of them. Disillusioned with the temporary material world, you might be asking, is this really all there is to life? Well, you can ask these questions and more here. You may feel empty and frustrated, perhaps with a sense that something's off or missing. And the big questions, why am I here? How did I get here? Where do I go from here? May be arising, those ones that we swept away as a young child. You're not necessarily religious, yet you sense there must be something more. And you might even use the word spiritual. Maybe you've heard of the cosmic joke, awakening, or enlightenment, but you know, it sort of all sounds Greek to you. Yet still, there must be something more, something real, something true, and something lasting. It is said when the student is ready, the teacher appears to appear. I add that in there, because no matter where answers appear to come from, your mentor, your book, your friend, your enemy, your dog, or a tree, ultimately, they always come from within, from yourself. So ask away, because the truth is available here and now. And welcome to the catalytic conversion, the catalytic conversation that may end up being a conversion, which can unveil the truth. And we have one guest here who can't stay very long, so I'd like to welcome Matthew to the call.
Thanks so much, Cindy.
Thanks for joining. What caught your eye about this?
Well, I've seen your posts periodically on Facebook, and I just said in 2 minutes, click here to join me, and I said, okay. I didn't know what it was about. I'm familiar a little bit with your work just based on what you post in there on one of your, I guess it's Dear Self groups there on Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think what you're doing is obviously having an impact on the world, so I thought I'd click and have you hear what you had to say.
Oh, excellent. Super. Thank you for joining. So what are, let's see, what can I do in about another minute, because you've got to go soon.
To put you on the spot there, a short time there. Sorry about that. What's your 2-minute thing there you mentioned earlier?
Oh, I would have to take 5 minutes to teach it, so we can't. You know, it's a really awesome technique on how to access inner peace really quickly. But I'll be teaching it over the course of all of these. So you're always invited to come back another time, and for 5 minutes at least. And we'll cover that. But I always speak about the 3 powers we were all born with. Well, actually, there's 5, but I can only cover 3 in this program. And the first is the power of awareness that everybody has. You don't have to do anything for it. You can't turn it off. You can't turn it on. It's just always there. And it's effortless. How easy is it to hear what you hear? It's absolutely free, isn't it? Then there's your power of attention. And your power of attention, most people don't know they have. They go through their whole lives not knowing there's this thing called their power of attention. I can demonstrate it by just asking you, are you feeling your right foot right now? Well, maybe you are now that I mentioned it. Unless you were sitting on it or holding it for some reason, which sometimes happens, people go, well, no, I wasn't aware of that until you mentioned it. So what happened? Had your foot stopped feeling? No. I hear the giggles. Most people will say, well, I wasn't paying attention to it. Well, what is this not paying attention that we apparently do? We don't not pay attention. What we do is we pay attention to something else. We contract our power of attention down onto one thing to the exclusion of everything else. And we have another guest coming on with a lot of noise, so I'm just going to have to mute him temporarily. Sorry. And so when you contract your power of attention down onto one thing, you can practically eliminate a body part, not actually, but in your experience, it's as if. So how much more can you eliminate knowledge and wisdom and maybe the car you cut off or the person in pain in front of you? So easily. But your power of attention can contract on your foot. It can contract on your head. Can you sense into the top of your head? Now that I mention it? What about your right shoulder? Yeah, most people can become aware of the skin and the clothing or the air around their skin. But what happened to your foot? Most people lose track of that. Why? Because they've contracted from one point in the body down to another. And we're so good at doing this, we don't even know that we're doing it. It's what we call being in a blind rage. You contract down onto a bad feeling thought so severely that you become blind, deaf, and ignorant to everything and everyone around you, including to your own access to wisdom. But your power of attention can also open. So can you feel your feet on the top of your head at the same time? To do this, you have to relax. You have to open your power of attention. And it's very easy to do. If you find it difficult, it's because you're contracting from your foot to your head, to your foot to your head. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't contract in two places at once. So open. And then take in your peripheral vision at the same time. So your feet, the top of your head, your peripheral vision. And now notice your breath moving in and moving out. All simultaneously. And if you're doing this, what's that like? Some people say quiet. Some people say expansive. Some people say peaceful. Relaxing. But why is it quiet? What's absent? The stream of stressful thinking, right? What we've done is we've pulled the plug on the mind. We've taken the power source away from it by putting your power of attention into your body, into the senses. And that, my friend, is a 2-minute technique to inner peace. I call it coming to your senses.
That's a fabulous process. Thank you very much for sharing that, Cindy.
You're very welcome. Glad you could stay in long enough.
I'm going to share your link right now and then hop off to work.
Awesome. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you. All right, Cindy.
Bye for now. Going to unmute my other friend and see if it's quieter there. Oh, I can't unmute you. You have to do it for you. You have to do everything for you. The self has to help the self. That's the way it goes. So I invite any of my live guests to unmute themselves at any point if it's quiet enough there and they have something they would like to share or ask. So this is an open stage. Basically, you can come in and ask any question about life experience, thought, feeling, and see where the conversation goes from there. It's completely spontaneous here. So until that happens, I'll just natter on about thoughts and feelings.
I'd like to test my sound. Is the sound working here?
Oh, you are sounding awesome.
All right.
I'm well, thank you, and welcome. Welcome, Larry.
You made it.
You made it. Very glad to have you here. Very glad. So, thoughts, feelings, are they you? Anybody ever asked themselves this? It's kind of strange. I was 40 some odd years old when I first heard the question, who are you? I hadn't even heard it in the conventional sense, which you hear often, things like know who you are, but what they're not talking about who you are, they're talking about what you do. They're talking about what you prefer, what your passions are, what your career is. And I knew that that's not what this question was asking. And I had noticed through suffering that thought is not what I am. That thought comes and goes. I used to have some beliefs like, I could control my thoughts. And most people do have this idea, especially when it comes to trying to manifest things with thoughts. But can you control your thoughts? Have you ever actually been able to control your thought? Nobody's been able to control your thought. If you could control your thoughts, you would never have a bad thought. You would know what thought is coming up before it comes up. I've never had anybody say, yeah, that's me. I know what thought's coming up before it comes up. Now, you may notice a bad feeling thought and then choose some positive thinking to replace it with. But is that controlling thought? In the next moment, you'll have another thought that you didn't plan on. Thoughts come easily and effortlessly to you without your permission, or with your permission, it doesn't matter. What is your permission anyway? It's just another thought. Do we have choice? We can certainly dismiss thoughts that we notice don't feel good, don't serve us. That we can do. We can withhold our stamp of approval. We can ignore thoughts. But if you come to the humble place of seeing you can't control thoughts, you will find freedom. Freedom from thoughts. Because if you believe you can control a thought, and you can't, you'll go around fighting thoughts. And that is bondage. When you realize you can't control thoughts and there's no need to control thoughts, then thoughts become your friends. Then they become what they actually are, which is options. Thoughts are ideas, possibilities, options. They're not truth, fundamental truth somehow. They're mandatory that they arise, but they're not mandatory that they stay. Unless you give them your power of attention. When you engage a thought, when you contemplate a thought and have more thoughts added unto it, you are giving it your power of authority. Your power, your apparent reality these thoughts then get. You're imparting your reality temporarily, because the thought is only temporary. Thank God.
Cindy, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How did you come to realize, and I've heard your story of the woods and of your father, and I've also heard you mention, I think, NLP, something like that, and I'm just wondering, what, if you went through any formal process to, like, for example, as formal as climbing a mountain, sitting in a cave for 10 years, any kind of a process that you would say, aha, now I'm clear, here I am, I'm having thoughts like everybody else, and now I realize thoughts don't mean anything at all, unless I give them the meaning that they appear to have. Was there something that, brought that about, or was it simply spontaneous, unplanned, unsearched for?
Hmm. That's a good question. Um, and I would have to say that it came from a lot of things. I had to unlearn a lot of wrong things. Things like I can control a thought. Because as long as you believe you control a thought, you can't learn this. Um, I had to, there's not a real good word for this. I think the closest is going to be surrender, I suppose. And it sounds so religious, and really it wasn't. But it wasn't not. I mean, surrendering thinking that I know something as a fundamental truth, because the the I that knows something is itself a thought. And when you realize that thoughts don't know anything, that thoughts are not truth, then the whole thing just crumbles. Did I do practices? Yeah, there were practices. Was I very good at them? No. No. But I was earnest. I was absolutely dedicated to discovering the truth. And I'd had enough of the pain. I'd had enough of the stories, and it all just sort of started to appear irrelevant, completely irrelevant. And I am going to have to mute you just because there's more sound coming in. Sorry. So if you do want to speak, and you do, and it looks like you might, then go ahead and unmute yourself again there, Larry. I think the most important thing was, I would call it a humility, settling in when you start to realize you don't know who you are. You really, truly accept this, that you don't know who you are. No thought will suffice for who you are. And then what I can call a heart cracking can happen. The heart can open. It'll stop trying to know everything. Things that we take for granted, such as who we are. And be open to actual direct truth, to let the world show you instead of you showing the world who I am. It's a complete reversal. And I had to watch thoughts. If you watch thoughts, then you come to realize you're not a thought. This becomes obvious. Maybe not immediately, but it will become obvious. And once you've had enough of those experiences, sometimes, dramatically, and I've seen clients that I've worked with do this. I'll work with them for months, and they're not really getting it. They have it intellectually, and then one day they have an experience, and they go, oh. So it's a lot of little experiences that disprove the false beliefs that we've held. And they have an effect. But basically for me, the final drop came when I fell in love with love itself. When I realized that things, people, and events don't make us happy, don't hold our love, and that our love is actually unlimited. That we are capable of a cosmic love that is beyond belief, that is beyond any idea of what people generally think. People generally think, that the best thing in life is having a loving relationship. I think people put that at the peak. So they look for their love from another person. For some people, it's money. But I think for most people, it's good health and a good relationship. But the joys that you get in those circumstances are minuscule compared to the love and joy that I know that absolutely every single person is capable of on a cosmic level. And why is that? Why aren't people experiencing that? Is my big question. And I think I know the answer because I've been there. The answer would be that if you believe that your joy and your love comes from a thing or a person or an event, then you're going to tie it to the thing or the person or the event and limit it to the thing or the person or the event. And when you have the particular joy, you lose the universal joy, which is infinitesimally bigger. That's not to say you shouldn't have a relationship. But the most important relationship is the one within, because it's unlimited. And when you have that relationship, you have so much love to give in other relationships. It's unlimited. It never expires. It has no needs. Because when you're self-fulfilling, you need nothing from anyone else. And what I see, those people don't want to give up what they have. They're afraid. They're afraid of having less. And it's not that you have to give it up, but you have to recognize the true source. The true source is not another thing, a person, or an event. The true source is within you, regardless of whether or not the thing or the person or the event is in your presence. And we all know this. It's like the white or pink elephant in the room. Because you can lay beside somebody and feel love and connected just the same as you can lay beside the same person and feel completely disconnected and horrible inside. So if it had anything to do with the person, that couldn't be possible. It has nothing to do with anything outside of you. And that's the good news, because if you start to experiment with this, not only will your suffering end, but your love and your joy will grow. And what will happen is it will start to grow. It'll grow beyond where you've ever been. And you'll go, wow, isn't this great? And then a thought at some point will come in and say, you can't feel that good because nothing's happened. And it'll drop like a rock. That was my experience with it. I went, wait a minute. Nothing else happened. That was just a mere thought that came in. So I want the joy back. And I went back into the joy. And this time when the thought tried to come in, I ignored it. I dismissed it. I stayed with the feeling. I valued the feeling over the thought. And if you do this, it will blow out all your old beliefs about the possibilities of joy and love and the source of joy and love and the limits of joy and love. And I think it's direct experience that people need. You know, there's different practices you can do, but you can do those practices your whole life, but you may never have the experience. Why would you not have the experience? Because you're still believing in yourself as a thought. You're still believing in thought as important, as true, as real. But the thought is not the reality. We have a saying in neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. There are some good things that came from NLP. And the saying is, you know, the map is not the territory. The word cup is not that which we're pointing to. Right? But people miss that. And they actually think the words are the truth. And this is why we can suffer over words. But they're just words. Everybody can see this in their own direct experience. Right now, you can see this in your own direct experience. Did certain practices help? Yes. Meditation, which slows the mind down, which is very similar to what I just demonstrated, which is what I call coming to your senses. So feeling into the body, the breath, noticing what you see, hear, touch, taste, smell. That slows the mind down and gets you in touch with direct reality, direct experiencing. So you can see the difference between direct experience and a thought about direct experience. I mean, the most obvious example I can take is I could say to you that the stove is hot. Do you know that the stove is hot? No. You don't know that you can't know that the stove is hot merely by me telling you the stove is hot. Now you can have a sentence in your mind. I call this thought knowledge. You can have thought knowledge that the stove is hot, but how do you get direct knowledge that the stove is hot? You need to touch the stove. Then you won't need the thought, the stove is hot. You don't need thoughts for pretty much anything, actually, except maybe to differentiate Mary from John. Maybe to set some time scheduling. Maybe to do some math. But you don't need a thought to walk. You don't have to think left, right, left, right. You don't need a thought to do dishes. You don't have to think go round, go round, go round, go round. If we only use thought and speech for the minimal practical things, we'd say precious anything. And it'd be a lot more peaceful. But we can get ourselves bound up and knotted up in thought, trying to answer a problem. Thought brings up a problem, and now we try to answer it with another thought. But sometimes all we need to do is realize that the first question was flawed. And the whole thing falls. Or the first problem that we're trying to solve. We have this habit of automatically answering any question that arises without questioning the question. For example, someone I know was told, you have to have a purpose. You have to figure out what your purpose is. So now she has this thought, oh my God, I have to have a purpose. I have to figure out my purpose. Without questioning that thought, now she's into figuring out how do I do that and what practices do I need to do and yada, yada, yada. But if you look at that question, or that problem, geez, I have to find my purpose. What's my purpose? And you question it, you see that it has some assumptions built in. It has assumptions that there's something called my purpose and that I've lost it and that I have to find it. But what if none of that is true? Suddenly the whole problem falls away. When you stay with the direct reality, pretty much all your problems will fall away because they don't exist. This is the irony. This is the part of the cosmic joke. That we can pursue for a lifetime some problems or something we think is so important and find out it's not. Ultimately, it's not. And that it's self-created. So I had a lot of little openings along the way before the major opening. I hope that answered your question. Do you have any questions on that? I'm not sure if we still have that guest here or not. So, oh, yes.
Did I unmute the sound all right?
Yes, that's great. You're on.
Tell me what the noise is that you hear. I mean, do you hear it now? I can adjust the control on the recording level.
It's not too bad right now. And now I'm getting an echo. But prior to that, there was also music, which was actually nice, but at times it got a little too loud, a little too much interference going on.
Okay, so letting me know that you hear music is helpful for me to understand what you're calling noise, and it's very easy to turn off the stereo.
Very good.
All right, hold on, I'll be right back.
Well, now and again, well, it's okay. There's no noise now. It's very nice.
Cindy, I didn't hear Larry at all.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting. Can you hear him now?
Nope.
He hasn't said anything.
1, 2, check, test 1, 2.
He's doing a check.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear him now?
Test 1, 2, test 1, 2.
Very, very faint. I can't make out what he's saying.
I turned
Wow.
the microphone volume way down in hopes of not having a problem with noise, and I may have turned it down too low. I can turn it back up, but
Just a touch.
I don't want to be too noisy and I don't want to be too quiet. I want to find
Okay, I heard that.
Viv says just a touch more up, and I
All
think
right,
we're
maybe if
good.
I just hold the microphone a little bit
Good.
closer, talk a little bit louder.
That might do it.
That's
Is
good.
that all right?
That's good.
Okay. So thank you,
Great.
Cindy. Thank you for that perusal, that sharing. And yeah, it does sure seem that we human beings tend to believe our thoughts, and to a very high degree we tend to believe a thought and respond to it as if it was a reality, as if a
Yes.
thought was a brick wall that we could bump into or something. And it's amazing what effect that has on us. I was just looking up a quote as you were speaking. I remembered this quote from someone who said, "We are really just monkeys with guns and money." And it's appropriate. And along with the guns and money, we believe the thoughts in our head, but we're really just these intelligent monkeys with guns and money and a bunch of belief systems that we really think are real. And I don't mean to demean the human status whatsoever after all the millions of years of evolution, or billions, whatever, and the amazing happenstance that we ended up being alive and on this planet is quite fortunate beyond imagination. How fortunate it is that we are alive and we are able to realize, hey, I'm here and I'm me, and hello you, and we are pretty much the same. Our wants and needs are the same. We're basically all from the same source of life, and somewhat appears to be influenced by this loving creation that creates life, all of it. Trees, dolphins, whales, humans, monkeys, dogs, and cats. Whatever energetic force of the universe brought this about is magnificent beyond words. So to get free of our own thoughts and belief systems is a huge step in discovering that we don't know, and then to live in this miracle of life. And I don't know what the point is.
It was sounding great. Sounding
I guess
great.
it's just a microphone check. 1, 2.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Yeah, what you just said there, to realize that we don't know, I think that's a huge step. It's a very, very large step. It's sort of like, the old ancient story of the traveler who would not take a certain path because there was a poisonous snake there, and for years he avoided it. And then a traveler came along with him and said, no, there's no snake there. I always go that way. Let's go that way. He's like, no, there's a snake there. He said, no, come on, look, it's not a snake, it's a rope. Oh. And he looks, and with this new information, he looks a little bit more closely and questions what he thought he knew, and he realizes it's a rope, it's not a snake. And so, in the same way, we have to question what we think we know, come to a place of not knowing, so that we can leave room for something else to be known. But as long as we think we know, then all we're going to know is what we think we know. So if we truly want something different, we have to come to that heart-opening, heart-cracking space of, you know what? I don't know. I don't know. And questions can help us get to that point of I don't know. You know, people think they know who or what they are until we start to ask them questions like, okay, so are you the body? And if they look at that, you know, I can show a photograph of me as an infant in my mother's arms. And people told me that's me. And I look at that and I look at this body and I go, yeah, no. The body has changed constantly. Is it who I am? How could that be? I have seen the change. I was there on my, say, 16th birthday. But this body was not. I was there on my 16th birthday, but this personality was not. Personality has changed. I saw the most extreme example of personality changing with my grandmother, who suffered, we believe she suffered a seizure. Her blood sugar dropped so low she passed out. And when she came to, she was a completely different personality. Prior to that, she had been what you would call a very soured, foul-mouthed, nasty person or personality. And she woke up the next day, butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. She was happy, peaceful, joyful, blissful. I was dumbstruck. Some members of my family were suffering over this because they said, I don't know who she is. She's not my mother. She's not my aunt. She's not my grandmother. And who cares? She's having fun and I'm enjoying it, you know, was sort of my perspective of it. But people get attached to who they think someone is, just like they get attached to who they think they are. They think they know who they are. They think they know, I am this personality. But if you look closely at the truth of it, that personality has changed gradually, maybe so gradually it hasn't been noticed, but over the lifetime it's actually changed dramatically. So are you the personality? No, this can't be. By the way, my grandmother's personality changed back. She was also having delusions, seeing things that weren't there, and as the delusions went away, the old personality came back. So something crossed in the brain. And I think when we have dramatic changes in the brain, that's when we most notice we are not a personality. And when we have dramatic changes in the body, that's when we most notice we are not the body. I mean, you can lose a whole arm. You know, you might have identified with the whole body, but then you lose an arm. But you're still there. So you're not the body, you're not the personality. You're not a thought. You see these come and go, and they change constantly, quickly. So I was left with this burning question, oh my God, who am I? You know? And it was wonderful. I mean, it was wonderful because when you come to open up to not knowing is when you have potential to know truth and just not know the thought you have about truth, like the thought you have, it's a snake. You can have the thought it's a snake. That doesn't make it a snake. So that's the difference between thought and truth. I can tell you the stove is hot. That doesn't mean the stove is hot. It doesn't make it hot. So I encourage people to only accept for truth what is true in their actual direct experience, and to question everything else. Everything about every thought, about other people, and everything about every thought about themselves. In working with people who are depressed and suicidal even, I've come to notice that not only is a thought taken to be true, but if there's an I in the thought, they believe they are the I in the thought. Or if there's a you in the thought, so say the thought says, you shouldn't do that, and it's a thought that you've heard your mother say many times. Some people will even say, that's my mother's thoughts, like my mother's telling me this. No, that thought is not your mother, even though it says you in it. That thought is a thought with the word you in it. And so when you start to realize that, then the edge is taken off of thoughts. You know, the bite is taken out, because that's not your mother doing this, and that's not you. You're not the I in the thought. And that changes everything. And if you can get this from just hearing it, it's going to change everything for you. And even if you don't get it from just hearing it, start watching it in your direct experience, checking it to see if it's true. Don't believe me. Because if you believe me, it's just another thought. It's a nice thought you can collect. It's not your direct truth. So look in your direct experience and see what's true for you. It's the only way you are going to say, yes, that's true. And you are the authority in your life. This is the problem and the solution. So long as you say, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, then that will be your experience. And nobody can change it for you. What does it take? It takes a direct experience going against the thought belief, to eat away and damage the thought until you come to the point where you no longer believe it. It was like when I was in high school, I used to hate gym because I would get pain in my side and sweaty and stinky. I just hated it. And then the thought came, I'm not a runner. It's just not for me. I'm just not a runner. So the I'm not this and I'm not that is still an ego, a false sense of I. You can have a good sense of ego, a good I. They're no better and they're no worse. It's still an ego. And I functioned from that for a while until both my parents nearly died in the same season, one because of heart and one because of lungs. And I realized that, the lung and the heart only has so many beats, and that my heartbeat was going way faster than someone who was fit. So I decided that I would get over this idea I was not a runner. And I started to go out. I went out on the track, and first I walked, all the way around the track. And then a couple days later, I trotted a quarter of the way around the track and walked the rest. And then I trotted halfway around the track, until one day I ran all the way around the track. And that day I said, yes, I'm a runner. What changed? Same me. What changed from one moment to the next before I said I was a runner, I had some direct experience where I ran enough distance that I was willing to say, I'm a runner. But until I really would say that, I had to have direct experience. This isn't true. You don't actually have to have direct experience first, but this is the way most people function. You could just say, yeah, I'm a runner, and go out and start your training. It's possible. The best position I've found is to not hold any belief about yourself or anybody. If you have to hold a belief, take the one that you are completely unlimited, and so is everybody else. Don't let any limiting thought acquire any apparent reality, because no thought is true. No thought is true, yet all thoughts believed in are experienced as if they're true. This is the dream. This is the illusion. It's not to throw thoughts out. Thoughts are not a problem. They can be useful. They can be creative. They're tools. They're options. That's the brain's job, is to churn out thoughts as options. And it's brilliant at doing it. They say, 40,000 thoughts a day. But you don't notice most of them. You don't care about most of them. One or two, maybe three, you have a particular interest in. And so those ones keep coming. It's like feeding the birds. If you feed the birds, they keep coming. If you stop feeding them, they stop coming. Check it out. Try it yourself. I had someone say, but thoughts are so fast. They happen so fast. They do. At first. And that's why it's important to stay in your senses as much as possible. And that's why I do suggest everybody learn to meditate. What I mean by meditate is not sit to some music or a guided meditation. I mean sit still. Sit quiet. Sit in front of a blank wall. Do nothing and just watch life happening. This is pulling your power of attention away from the stream of stressful thinking. Slows everything down. Lets you take a real good look at exactly what's going on here. Because what will happen with thought, you see, it has a tendency to either deteriorate or go the opposite direction. Deteriorate means it feels worse and worse and worse and worse. So you have a thought. There was one woman who went to the grocery store and used the wrong debit card. The wrong one, meaning that she should have used a different one as per her agreement with her husband. And the first thought was, I used the wrong card. The second thought was, well, geez, how could I do that? I'm so stupid. The third thought, oh, my husband's going to be upset with me. He's going to be really angry. And then it, goes on and on into imagining what horrible things are going to happen as a result of this. This is a true story, and none of those things happened. And because the husband knows it's not a big deal, we'll just transfer some money. No problem. But the mind can take something and take one thought and twist it and delete and distort. And then another thought, the next one. This is actually a game we played as children. It was called telephone. We sat in a circle, and the starting person would whisper something in the person beside their ear. And then they would whisper it to the next and to the next and to the next. It would go all the way around the circle, 30 kids or so. And by the time it came to the last child, the child was supposed to repeat what the original sentence was, and it came out completely demolished. It wasn't even a sentence. It was quite often very funny. All the kids would burst out laughing. It was a very good lesson. It's that each time you incorrectly repeat a sentence, it gets completely distorted and destroyed, and it looks nothing like the original in the end. So the more you tell yourself a story over and over and over, and the more you feel bad, it gets worse, because when you feel bad, bad thoughts come to you easily and effortlessly. And when you feel good, good thoughts come to you easily and effortlessly. So instead of positive thinking, I show people how to feel good first. Shift your state first. It's much more powerful. And it is congruent. And we have to be congruent. Humans cannot stand to be incongruent. For example, if you ever felt really bad, you felt really judged, and you try to tell yourself something nice, something positive, it just doesn't work. And you might feel worse. I felt horrible. The more I tried this, the more it hurt. It was like just stabbing myself deeper and deeper until I finally gave up. I said, this is nonsense. It doesn't work. Because you're feeling judged. How can you tell yourself you're not judged? This is incongruent. So there is a way to shift your state in spite of whatever has happened, because whatever has happened actually hasn't hurt you. It's your thought about what happened that hurt you, and it's just a thought. And so as thought, it's imagination, it's unreal, and it can be changed, but it needs to be done along with the whole body-mind, not just separately as thought. That's what I call alchemy. That's what I teach people how to do, so that they are in alignment with truth, or at least open to possibilities rather than their own painful mind reads, basically, about things, people, or events. Mind reads, claiming to know that someone hurt you and they did it on purpose. This is one example. You can't possibly know somebody else's purpose or intention unless they've told you. Why do we mind read something negative? Why don't we mind read something positive? These are questions I asked myself. See, the power of questions, which is what Dear Self is all about, is using questions and questioning yourself and getting help from others to question yourself, is where everything can change. It can completely reverse your perspective and therefore your experience. Why do we think we know what other people have done or intended to do, or how they feel even, You can say, he's angry with me, but you don't know that unless you've asked them and they've told you. Why do we do that? It shocked me. It shocked me how often I was doing it, which was constantly. And then I was just completely disgusted by the fact that I was always mind reading negatively. What was the purpose in that? It was to defend myself, protect myself. From what? Turned out to be nothing. The very act of defense hurts yourself, not the other person. The idea that you need to defend yourself hurts yourself. And we do this because we believe that things, people, or events make us happy or unhappy. You see, that fell away from me fundamentally. That fundamental belief, it was huge. How did it happen? I was in intense suffering, and suddenly it flipped over into this most amazing love, joy, peace, and nothing outside of me happened. Nothing outside of me changed. To me, this shouldn't happen because things, people, or events make me happy or unhappy. So if something doesn't change, I should still be unhappy. But what's the truth in your experience? You do get over jilted lovers. You do get over deaths. They say time heals. It's not time. It's stopping the suffering. It's stopping hurting yourself mentally, emotionally, and you can do it right now. You don't need any time for it. What happens is we forget to suffer. We get distracted eventually and go on with our lives and forget to suffer. That doesn't mean you've healed. It means you're just not doing it as much because you're doing something else now. So we started late. We're a little over time, but maybe that's a good stopping point unless anybody else has any comments, questions, quotes. I'd love to open it up and hear some other voices of mine. All right, very good then. Then for now, I'll thank you for joining me, in particular my guests. Very, very honored.
Right back at you.
You're back on?
Yeah.
Did you have anything to say?
No, but something came up on my screen, and I think it was from Larry. It said, I think it said, I do not have that belief.
I don't see a chat box anywhere somewhere.
It was right on top of his.
Oh, maybe there is a chat. Yeah, I guess maybe Larry commented at some point. I don't know which belief, but it's good not to have any beliefs. So the fewer we hold, the better. Definitely. Definitely.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you. And I'll be setting more dates for more conversations with the self. Of course, you can have them anytime on your own because you're never without yourself. Larry has added that he doesn't have the belief that things, people, or events hurt him. Some people will say that. The truth is exposed in everyday life. If you ever get angry, hurt, upset, feel alone, abandoned, if something happens, these are tip-offs. And sometimes we're not even aware that we do it until somebody else points it out. But this is a fundamental belief that fuels a lot of other ones. So if you've blown that one out of the water, however you've done it, congratulations. If you've limited your joy, then you have that belief to some degree. If you don't have that belief, you should be experiencing unlimited joy, states of bliss and ecstasy. Why not? Just because you can. So this is another example. You may not be on the suffering side, but you may not be fully experiencing the joy and love that you're capable of. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, with that I shall wrap it up. Thanks again for joining.
Love it. Love
it. You held off the whole conversation for that. Very fun. Very fun. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, Larry. Thank you. Very fun.
Bye. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.